Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Your Life, Your Story, Rise Up. I'm your host, Jill O'Boyle. And today I am joined with a guest today that you guys are absolutely going to love. I know I say that a lot, but this one, I know my listeners, I know what resonates with you guys, and I know that you're going to love my guest, who is Hope Pedraza. She is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, a certified holistic nutritionist, and the founder of Imbalance Studios. It's a Pilates and wellness franchise. So she helps women heal chronic symptoms and get to the root of their issues so that they can live a life of purpose and alignment. Y'all know I love talking about purpose and alignment and balance. So Hope, welcome to the show. So glad to have you.
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So you submitted a thing to be on the podcast, and I took a look at your website and I was like, oh, yep, absolutely 100%. I'm a girl that loves to talk about intuition, purpose, finding freedom in our lives, balance. I was navigated as a high achiever perfectionist for most of my life. And so I found in your story, we had a little bit of similar things and how you navigated through some burnout as well, and really tapped into this human design. And so I'm really excited to talk about this because this is something that I don't know. So listeners, we're in for a treat because I'm going to be learning right with you. Hope is, as you heard in her bio, somebody who has a lot of background in this. And so I'm super excited to just hear your story, Hope, and learn more about human design and how did you get into this? And how did you learn about it?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is one of the funnest things about having a podcast, right? You get to learn and have cool conversations. It's one of my favorite things. So I'm glad to teach you something new because it's not all the time that I get to do that. So I love it.
Yes.
So yeah, I found human design a few years ago. I was working with a spiritual business coach, and it was just kind of this little piece of her. She wasn't like human design expert per se, but it was this little piece of her program. And it was just enough for me to kind of dip my toe in the water and be like, okay, I need to know more about this because I did my chart, which you can get free online. There's a bazillion sites. And I know we'll talk about this in a little bit, but you can get your free chart. But I think just getting my free chart and just seeing that, it was validating. It was like the permission that I needed to be me. And I think it was really kind of this pivotal moment for me where I could really embrace being me and run my business in a way that allowed me to be me. And you mentioned burnout and things like that. Same. I mean, I was type A, perfectionist, all the things. And I think, the burnout part was a real thing. And I think the introduction of this for me was really a pivotal moment for me, really turning things around.
Yeah. So you mentioned there, it allowed you to be you. And I love that. I'm all about people finding out their true selves, truly being authentic in life. There's so much freedom. And I was a woman who hid behind my own identity. I really didn't know who I was. I lived my life for what other people thought I should do. So how did that play out in your story? Can you give us a little bit of background, Hope, on your past, where you came from? And you mentioned your business too. At this time, had you started your business, or did this lead you in your journey of finding yourself? Did that lead you into your business?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I've been an entrepreneur for I guess a little bit over a decade now. And so I mean, I've been kind of in the thick of it for a while, but I think to your point, that was me too. It was me living kind of, rules of society or the norm, doing what everybody else is doing, like that whole thing. And I think there's different facets of that. And I've talked through this on my podcast before because there's these different stages of me, kind of this self-realization process that I've come to over the years. And I think that part of it, I grew up in a very conservative part of the country in the South. And it was all about, being the good Christian girl. And it was all about perception and what everybody thought of you, and you having the, you know what I mean? So I think that really lent to my perfectionist tendencies and me having to do everything perfectly. And because I mean, I can't necessarily say it was my parents like pushing me to be perfect, but I think it was just the expectation just in general, and in our culture that we lived in, was to be, the perfect, you follow the rules and you do this just right and you do things this, you know what I mean? And so I think just that was how I was running my business too. I have to do everything perfect and everybody else is doing it this way. So I guess I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to follow the rules and I'm going to do it like this. And so I think when I learned my human design, I was kind of already, I really kind of been on this kind of spiritual journey within myself. So I think I was already on the precipice. Like, I feel like I could feel that I was on the edge of something like shifting. And I think, like I said, this was kind of this pivotal moment that kind of pushed me over the edge. Like, okay, this was what I needed to learn to really make the shift. And so I think for me, when I learned my human design and like what human design is and how it works and all kind of this, there's like this science and there's also this spiritual piece to it that really resonated with me. And I think it was understanding and accepting. And I think too, and I think this goes with anything. I think we all know these things. I think we're born knowing things. And then at some point with conditioning and culture and society, and we just get conditioned to forget, like these innate things that we're born knowing, And so I think that when I learned it, that the human design piece was kind of that moment. It was like meeting myself for the first time, but also meeting an old friend where it's like, no, I've known this person. Like, I know this person that this human design thing is telling me about, but I had either shoved parts away or like, no, you don't need to be like that. It was like that kind of thing. And it was this realization where it's like, no, this is me. This is how I'm designed. I was made this way. And like, I always think like blast Lady Gaga, like I was born this way. Let me just own it, so I think that was the moment for me where it's like, okay, this is how it's designed. It was created this way. And now I can own it and I can live it and I can embody it.
Yeah. I mean, we all are born, God created us. That's, my belief is God created us, out of, he, created us, put us in our mother's womb, designed us for a reason, for a purpose. And I think when you're younger and you can I love to do inner child work in my coaching, is really to bring you back to that inner child before the world shaped you, before you realized expectations and all the things that our world just naturally, unfortunately, it just gets in our head a little bit. And this brain is more powerful than people realize, where it starts to control us into a person that we were never designed to be. So you mentioned that human design is really for somebody listening, that's really like, okay, layman's terms, it is really it's a science, it's science and spirituality. And so break it down for us that are very, very new to this. And I know that you said you can go online, you can find a chart based on your birth date and things like that. But is it with chakras? Is it like, what's all involved in it?
Yeah. So it's really a complex system. So in its simplest terms, it's the science of differentiation. So this is really showing you how unique we all are and how we were designed. And so it puts these pieces together, some of these ancient teachings like the chakra system and astrology and the I Ching. And then it puts it together with some more modern day sciences, like there's quantum mechanics and quantum physics and neuroscience, and it puts it all together in this chart. And if you look at the chart, and you can get it for free, and the free version will give you kind of like the basic, like high level part. But you can get really granular. There's so many like advanced parts, and it'll blow your mind. So, but at its simplest form, it is the science of differentiation. And so it's putting all those pieces together that I mentioned. And I think the piece that really fascinates me, and because so you need your exact birth date, time, and place. And what fascinates me is it puts, these ancient pieces together with the astrology, because I know for some people it can seem a little woo at face value. But if you really look at the science, there is these really I'm about to get real nerdy with this.
No,
but
I
there's
love
these
it.
subatomic particles. Okay, good. These subatomic particles called neutrinos. They're smaller than atoms, they're smaller than electrons, are the smallest, most subatomic particle. And so the theory behind, and the neutrinos are real, like this is a made up thing. You can go look at studies, and there's actually, I was just reading an article a few weeks ago, the government is studying neutrinos and how, I forget what they're using, but they're not actual things. But but basically what the human design piece is saying is that these neutrinos, because they're so small, they can pass through matter, unlike like electrons that are kind of bounce off things. So they can pass through matter, and they can affect your body at a cellular level because they're affecting your DNA. And so the astrology piece of human design is where, the things were in the cosmos when you were born. They're emitting these neutrinos, which is a fact, it's a scientific fact, and it's how it's affecting your DNA at the moment of your birth. So there's this piece of human design of how you were designed in the womb, and then there's this piece of human design after you, like at your time and place of birth, and all those pieces are put together, and it's going to affect your personality, how you make decisions, how you interact with the world around you, how you interact with other people, your relationships, how you move your body and eat. Like there's so many aspects, which is why I like to use it in my work, because we can tie together wellness and business and relationships and all the things.
Oh my gosh. I love this. I'm a girl that loves, like, if there's a test out there, let me take it. Let me find out all about me. The Enneagrams, the disc, Myers-Briggs. I've done them all. Working Genius. I love them.
All of them.
So this is,
I'm with
that's
you.
why I'm like, go nerd out, because I get so excited about, like, because I just think, God puts so much details in little things of the world. I mean, the birds and how they get fed, and like just so many little things that, don't you think that he like put so many details into you and like created you with I just love it. And so how has knowing this, so you find it all out, right? All the stuff that you just said, and you find out, your personality and how you make decisions and how you just navigate through the world. Right. And by learning that, you related earlier to being like, that perfectionism and following this path of life. When you studied this and you kind of learned more about it, and then you took it into your business, and I think you're helping women, entrepreneurs and leaders, I think, if I read that right, now use this information in their business. How did that change your life? Like, let's talk about like productivity and like burnout, because those are things that I know the listeners here relate to, as do I. And I want to know for my own, running my own business and my personal life. So if I found out my human design, what is that going to do? How will that benefit me? And just maybe share a little bit of your story as well of how that changed your life.
Yeah. So I think the biggest part is really, like I mentioned before, really understanding, the pieces of your design. And I think the other part is understanding where we've been conditioned to live the opposite of that, right? Where, because the way I see it, and when you're looking at wellness, and just use wellness as, and while I do tie it into business, and so let me say this first, I am a firm believer that our wellness and our business, like all of this is tied together. Like there is no separating your wellness from your business, your business from your wellness. So apply it to all the things. But when you're looking at the lens, through the lens of human design, we spend so much of our lives being something or someone that we are not designed to be. Conditioned from whether it's family, society, generational, whatever it is. And so when that's the case, we end up meeting resistance. And the feeling, the burnout is the resistance, right? That's like the biggest sign for all of us is when you're feeling that burnout, it's that resistance of going at things in the way we are not designed, in a way we're not designed to do it. So when we can really learn our human design, that's when we remove that resistance, and there's more ease and flow to everything. And so I think with that, we are releasing this, this stuck, stored, stagnant energy in the body. We allow the energy to move freely in the body. So physically, our body's functioning better, emotionally, mentally, creatively, like all these pieces that the energy is flowing better because we've released that resistance and we're moving at it in a more aligned way. So for me, there's a lot of deconditioning that has to happen. And that's really what I help my clients with, is this deconditioning where it's like, okay, I believe this and this and this about myself, but my human design says this. So there's a mismatch here, right? So how can we untangle. There's some layers. The inner child stuff is great, and there's a lot of that has to be done. But it's like peeling back the layers to getting to that like base level of this is my design, this is me, not these other things that I think is me. So for me, just a couple examples. So I'm a manifesting generator.
Okay.
And so for me, there was a lot of pieces where like I like to do lots of things. Like I am multi-passionate, as you can see in my bio. Like I like podcasts and I like to work out and I like Pilates and I like there's all these things. So for a while, I'm like, God, just pick something. I was so frustrated with myself. Just pick something, like just pick something and stick with it. Because the other piece of that is as a manifesting generator and as a sacral being. So my inner authority comes from my sacral. It's that gut feeling. And for me, that's what runs my energy. So when something isn't exciting me or lighting me up anymore, then that's my cue to let it go.
Yes.
And for me, I would hold on to things like, no, I got to see it through to the end. I got to finish this. And so by society's like, viewpoint, it might seem like I'm flaky or indecisive, or I can't make my mind up, or I'm all over the place. And so for me, I'm like, God, just pick something and stick with it. Like, just stop being so all over the place. When I learned my human design, I'm like, wait, I'm actually supposed to be all over the place. Like everybody else thinks I'm all over the place. But for me, it makes sense because even though I may not finish everything to completion, it's still the next breadcrumb. Like I'm still going to the next breadcrumb and it's leading me to the next thing.
Oh, man. I don't know if anybody's listening that can resonate with that, but didn't that give you like a sense of peace? Like, I feel like that's me. Like I am very much, well, I'm an Enneagram 3 high achiever, right? So I strive for perfection. I love to get things, but I am also very much of a person who loves to start things and then it will never get finished. And I get very passionate about doing it though. Like I get very excited. I'm like, I'm doing this. I do all the things. And then it's like, I'm just done with that.
Yep.
That's no longer fun. Let me jump onto the next shiny thing. So when you were just saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just because I'm human design like that. So that's okay. Oh yeah.
Manifesting generator. That's like, check. Yep.
Yep. Oh, that's really good. And I talk a lot about working genius. I do that in a workshop and with my clients. And there's 6 zones of a thriving organization. And everybody has a different genius zone, if not 2. And then they have frustration zones. And when you spend too much time in that frustration zone, you'll burn yourself out. And so it's so much what you're saying, it is relatable, right? So there's a zone of tenacity. And those are those people that are those finishers. Like they're the ones that love to check it off, get it done, And from my project management days, like I had a little bit of that, like that's in me, but that was like more in my middle zone. And that's why I thrived for a long time in that career, but it's not ultimately what brings me the most joy and fuels my energy.
Exactly.
And so it worked.
And that's
right?
exactly it. That's for a time. Yeah.
For time. And that was the majority of my career. And so what you're saying and what I've already have been learning is really, really tying it all together. That's what like I get geeked out about. Cause I'm like, listen to her. She knows what she's talking about. She's spot on. Like I've done all the inner work I can get. And it's so spot on. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's awesome. So the other thing I want to dive into, because I thought this was fascinating. I was listening to your podcast. And for those of you listening, you'll need to go follow Hope, follow her podcast. If you resonate with Your Life, Your Story, this podcast, you're going to love hers, which is hopeful and wholesome. And so the other day I was listening to some of your episodes and you had an episode on there where if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my face. It was like, I mean, just mouth open, eyes wide. And Hope, you were going through how we can, in our life and our business, we can really manage our productivity. We can manage the things that we do as we pay attention to our cycle. And there's a direct relation for why we do things, why we do what we do, and also why we feel certain ways. There was a really good, you shared about like the inner critic and the imposter syndrome and all this, and like why those come up on certain like weeks. And then you talked about organization, and we'll get to that in a minute, but we've got to talk about this for the ladies that are listening. This will be mind blowing to you. So can you talk about how there is an actual relation to your cycle, and then how you can use that as a benefit to being more productive in your work? and life
Yeah, for
too.
sure. So yes, yes. And this is something I help my clients with too. And so my work, especially right now, this is what's lighting me up right now. So for me, it's putting together the human design pieces and the cycle syncing piece. So you might have heard of the term cycle syncing before. I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's kind of trendy. It might just be trending my bubble because I feel like I live in a bubble, but it's out there. But it's basically just living according to your cycle. And like Jill is saying, it's understanding kind of these energetic waves that we have as women, because here's the thing. I'm going to stand on my like feminist soapbox for a second. We live in we live in a man's world. Okay. Whether you're a feminist or not, the fact is we live in a man's world. And that means that the hustle culture is a totally masculine construct. This work 24/7, 365, hustle, hustle, don't stop. Like that whole thing is a very masculine structure. And it works, and it actually works fine for men because men want to work on a 24-hour hormone cycle. Their hormones start over the next day. So they can hustle and grind like that. And it's not really a big a deal to them. Like it doesn't affect their bodies in the same way. Whereas women, we work on a 28-day hormone cycle. So our hormones throughout those 28 days, there's fluctuations. They're low, they're high, they're up, they're down. It's not the same. So us going along with this same like masculine construct of working the same all day, every day, all month long, it doesn't work for us. And you want to wonder why women get burnt out and their health goes down the drain. And we have all these health issues and blood sugar dysregulation and hormone imbalances and all these other things going on, is because we're pushing ourselves to the max because we're trying to fit into this, masculine. So that's my soapbox moment. And that's why I love this work of cycle syncing, is because it allows us to really understand how our hormones work and how our energy works. Because our hormones are such powerful chemicals in the body. They're so powerful and they cause so many things to happen in your body. And so for me, it's like, why wouldn't we listen to those? Like, why wouldn't that be the driving force of how we're doing things, is really honoring this natural rhythms of our body, like honoring that part of it.
Yeah.
So with this, just kind of like overview of the cycle things of what you were talking about. And you can go listen to the whole episode of my podcast and go into a lot of depth, but I think the high level stuff is equally as you get some takeaways. Yeah. So basically starting with your cycle. So the first part of your cycle, day 1 is your first day of bleeding, right? And so this starts kind of, and in the episode, and this is how I like teach my clients, I use seasons.
I love that.
I feel like it's nicer. I feel like it's more of a nicer connotation than, I don't know. I feel like, and it works. I feel like it works.
It does.
So the first day of your cycle is the first day of bleeding, and this enters your follicular phase. There's really like 2 phases of your follicular phase. There's like the early follicular phase, and then there's the later. So the earlier is when you're menstruating. And this is the winter phase, right? So the winter is when you give yourself permission to rest and replenish, and you're nourishing your body. And the cool thing about this is, in terms of like productivity, is while yes, typically like physically we're feeling kind of drained, kind of tired, we have like this, like for me, I feel like I have this static, like creativity is like non-existent for me in this phase. Like it's like this static, it's like nothing's coming through.
Yes.
But what is heightened in this time is your sense of introspection, right? So taking this time to be introspective. So going inward, doing the inner work, meditation, journaling, like all the inner work, because those senses are heightened in this time. And so it's a really nice time to like go inward and see what, creative, intuitive downloads come through while you're giving your body physical rest, right? Then the second half of this phase is like the spring. Right. So the menstruation phase is passing, and then the spring is kind of when it's like you're gearing up for summer, right? Think of like the actual seasons. And so it's like when your period ends and you're going up to ovulation. Ovulation is like peak. It's like your energy, everything is at its peak. So we're like gearing up to that. So you feel your energy kind of replenishing. You feel like your creativity is kind of coming back, right? You feel yourself being more able to solve problems with a clear head, like creativity is coming back. Maybe this is a great time to start a new project. And kind of like the work that you laid in the winter, like whatever creative, intuitive downloads came to, then this is where you can like, let's start working on those plans, right?
Yeah.
And so from there, we hit summer, right? Ovulation is summer. While ovulation is a very short period of your cycle. I mean, it's literally one day, but the energy does last more than the one day. So not saying like your whole cycle, you have one day of energy. I don't want to make it sound like that. But when we're at summer, this is like your feel more social. This is a great time for like in-person events, networking, interviews, like things that you want to be in person. You're going to be more vibrant and lively and conversational and like really like, balls to the wall. I'm working, like I'm getting this stuff done. Like this is the time to do that. You might notice that you're feeling more like confident, like showing up on camera on, social media or whatever. Like this is a great time to do all of those things.
Yeah.
And then we get to fall. So fall comes after that. And fall, right, is like us basically getting ready for winter. And so this is what you were talking about, Jill, and you were like, oh gosh, this resonates. So when you're in this fall phase, it's your luteal phase. This is when your energy starts to shift because now we've hit our peak hormones when we're in ovulation, right? So your late follicular phase and then ovulation is when like your hormones are at their peak, and then they kind of start to wane down because we're getting ready for menstruation again when they're at the lowest. And so your energy is going to start to shift. Your mood is going to start to shift. So you mentioned before about the inner critic. Like this is when like if you've ever had an existential crisis, it's probably happening during this phase of your cycle. So be mindful of like big decisions that you make. For me, I try not to make big decisions unless it's like I absolutely have to. I try not to make big decisions during this part of my phase because I can guarantee you that there's going to be some like emotionally charged decision-making process happening. And I don't be the case. And then the other part of this is you do feel while you are your mood is kind of shifting, but you do feel more productive in terms of like getting things done. So I mentioned in my episode, the one you're talking about, that this is a really good time to like, okay, you have like, if any of y'all have ever had kids, there's like that nesting phase where you're getting ready for the baby to come. This is the time where that happens during your cycle, like cleaning stuff out, getting rid of what no longer serves you, like physically, mentally, whatever that means for you. This is the time to do that. The inner critic's going to come out at this time, but which you can see that there's like an upside and a downside to that, because the downside is like the existential crisis thing could happen, right? But the upside is like your BS meter is like, now I really know what doesn't serve me and I know what to get rid of. I know what to clean out. I know what to get rid of, so all of that is happening during this phase. And then it starts all over. You go back to winter.
This is so good. Like I literally, that whole episode, yes, I'm going to post a link to it because everybody needs to listen to it, because I just was like laughing through the whole thing because I was just like, oh my gosh, she has just described my last month. Like, because just as you had went through that, what I was telling Hope before we got on, we were chatting. I was like, I was amazed by this episode because I had just done a whole major, like spur of the moment, right, cleaning out my closet, what led to taking my sandals out of my closet because I'm tripping over them. Because I'm like, okay, why do I even have these sandals in my closet? Right. It's like that no BS. Like you were just saying, I was like, oh my gosh, like, why do I even have all these sandals here? It's like winter. I live in Indiana. Like, okay, let's clean this out. So like pulling them all out and then going down to the basement to get a tub was what I was going to do. I was going to go get a tub to put the sandals away, put them away for the winter. And as I walk down to the basement, I see my kids' toys and just the basement is just in like, it's just disarray, like hot mess. And so in that second, I like totally forget about the tub and I just start going like crazy lady and just pulling out all the shelves of all the stuff that I'm like, oh, maybe I will use that fall decoration next year, but I didn't like it this year, but I kept on hoarding it. I was just like pack rat down there. It was like literally 5 hours. My husband, like at, I think hour 2, like peeked down and was like, what are you doing down there? I was like, oh, wait till you see this place. You're going to love this. And then the funniest part of that story was then I was so tired. I had like a smoothie that morning, but I was not stopping. I was like, I'm getting this basement done.
Get it done.
Loaded up my car for a project that I didn't even plan to do that day, but it was so funny. And so, then at the end of the day, I totally forgot about the sandals. My husband yells down the stairs, like, what are all these sandals doing? Just thrown in the bathroom. And I was like, oh, that's what started that whole project downstairs. I'll get to that tomorrow. But I love it. It was so spot on between that and then the week before having that inner critic where I'd sent out a proposal and then immediately, like, I'm very intuitive. I usually go with my gut when I do things. I trust it. 90% of the time, I'd say I trust my intuition so much. And the more I tap into it, the more I know that it's so true. But man, like that week, I was like, yep. As soon as I hit send, that inner critic was so loud. It was ridiculous. I mean,
Yes.
just, oh my gosh, you're
Yes.
crazy. Why are you doing that?
Yes.
Nobody's going to buy
Yep.
that. All the things.
Yep. It's a real thing. And I have to be some, because sometimes it's worse for me than others some months. And then when it's that week, when I know it's like sometimes I have to hold off. And like, if I'm pitching myself on something, or if I'm like, I just have to be like, mentally, I just need to set that away and I'm just going to do it next week. Right. You
Yeah.
just have to like,
Yeah.
know your boundaries. And if it's going to overtake your mental health, like, okay, I'm just going to
Just,
do that next week.
yeah. And
Mhm.
I was so happy to have heard that, because I did. I just was like, you know what, I'm letting that go. And then of course, the following week I get an email like, yeah, it's
Of course,
good.
it was, yeah, it
Proposal
was good.
signed.
Mhm.
It's perfect. They love it. Everything's great. Right. And I'm like over here, like
Yep.
freaking out like a crazy lady.
Freaking
I'm like,
out.
oh my gosh,
Yes,
trust your intuition. It will lead
that's
you
it.
great
That's
places.
it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I love that. I love that. So, okay. So back to the human design, as we can tell, between the knowing your human design, understanding your cycle, the relationship between those two. So once you find that out, does it break it down into different, like tests and stuff, like assessments tests, they name it like like Enneagram 3 is they say a high achiever. So does the human design, do they break it down into certain things, or can we do
Yeah,
mine and I
yeah.
can understand like,
Yeah. So there's different parts of your chart. And so I did pull yours up. There's different parts of your chart. And so when you look at, I mean, really on any site, there's like the main, again, like the high level things are on there. Now, sometimes you may not know what it all means, but it's going to be on there.
yeah.
So when you look at your chart, it's going to be this, it's called a body graph. And so because it is so tied into the chakra system, you're going to see, if you're familiar with the chakra system, there's going to be little shapes, and it's going to be basically where your chakras are. And while there are 7 main chakras, there are 9 energy centers on your human design body graph. So it's going to look a little bit different.
Okay.
And then there's numbers and there's lines. And so if you want, do you want me to, I mean, I know, well,
Yeah.
you're going to put this on YouTube. Do you want me to share my screen so you can see yours while I'm walking through it? Or do you want me to just talk you through it? You want to share it?
Either
Okay.
way.
If I'm able to, I can.
Let me
Okay.
see.
So when you look at it, and I think, and I'll just kind of point out like the most important pieces of the chart, just so you can get like the high, again, kind of like the high level stuff.
Yeah. Love
Let me
this.
see. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna do this one, and then if y'all are watching online, then you can see. Okay, cool. So you'll see, so this is Jill's. And so she wasn't exactly sure about her time of birth. But, and I will say there are ways you can get it, even if you don't know your exact, like if you've ever heard of like using a pendulum, it's basically like letting your intuition kind of lead you. But
Yeah.
for the most part, you can get like generally right. But the biggest thing that's going to change probably would be this right here. Your profile could change. But either way,
Yeah.
Jill, and just knowing, like listening to Jill talk about herself, then I can say like, you're definitely manifesting generator. So I can say that part is going to be accurate. So, and that's what my type is too. So your type, that's what I was talking about, my type, and that deconditioning part for me.
Yeah.
The manifesting generator is your type. So there's 5 main types. So you'll have your type here, and like, I like this site. I'm not getting paid by her by any means, but I just like this one because she just spells it out easily, and it's easily to understand like the main parts of it. So it says multi-passionate people who are here to do and accomplish many diverse things, right? And that's you as a manifesting generator.
Yeah.
So you'll have your type. There's 5 different types. And then your authority, I think this is probably the next like important, like actually 1, 2, 3. Yeah. These 4, I would probably say are the best places to start, these 4 parts of the chart. So your type, your authority, your profile, and your strategy. So your authority, this is how you make decisions. And for me, I work a lot with my clients on this part because it's such a big part of running a business. And I, work with entrepreneurs and coaches, and it's a big part of it in understanding how you best make decisions. So for you, if if it's all correct here, you are an emotional authority. And so what this means is, so you see this right here is your emotional center. It usually pops. Oh, there it is, emotional center. So this is where you make your decisions. So for you as an emotional authority, you are meant to ride the emotional wave. So when you're making a decision, you're going to feel kind of this wave of emotions, but you are meant to wait So you're not meant to make the decision in the moment, because when you make the decision in the moment, it's usually an emotional decision, and it's
Yes.
emotionally charged decision. So for you as an emotional authority, you're meant to ride the wave and get to the end of that emotional wave and wait for the clarity at the end of that, then make the decision. So like for me, and I'll give you the opposite of that because it's important to understand. For me, I'm a sacral authority. So
Okay.
for me, my decisions literally come in the moment. They're like split. It's a yes, clear yes, no. If I'm questioning it, that means I brought it up into my head and I'm just like chewing on it in my head. And that's not how we're meant to make decisions. And so that'd be the opposite. For you, you are meant to ride that emotional wave. And at the end, the clarity is going to come for you. And that's how you make your decisions. And so I think for a lot of people that are emotional authorities, this takes some training, because you want to know the answer in the moment. You're like, I got to know it right now. But it's like, sometimes you just really have to wait for that clarity to make the decision. Right. Does that resonate?
Oh, it so resonates. It's so spot on because,
Yeah.
and I tell people that a lot, like a lot of times when, people ask me questions or things like that, I have to tell them, I said, hey, I need the way I respond is I just need a little bit of time to process.
Yes.
Just give me a little bit of time to process what
Mhm.
you're asking me. And then I'll
Mhm.
circle back. I will always circle
Yep.
back to you. But I know that
Yep.
about myself, and I've made too many errors where I put my foot in my mouth or I say things like you
Mhm.
said in the heat of the
Mhm.
moment,
Yep.
where I've learned
Yep.
as I've aged, I've learned this about me, that I just need a quick pause.
Yep.
Like I even use that acronym WAIT. Like, why am I talking? Like I'll say that to myself, like,
Oh
wait,
yeah,
Jill,
that's good.
wait, Jill.
That is perfect.
Yeah. Because, and I can
That is so good.
yes, I have a sticky note that says that. And because
I love
I
that.
need it. I need that wait for a minute. Why am I talking? Just hold on.
Yeah.
Let process that for a minute. And then I'm good. And then usually, because I am very intuitive, I get a gut read, but it just, like you said,
Yeah.
that clarity piece, I just want to make sure
Yep.
that that's what I'm feeling. That's
Yep.
right. And it's not up here.
Yes.
It's like a whole
Yes.
thing that goes on with me.
That is, I mean, that is like the truest definition of emotional, but like you're already embodying that and you didn't even know it. Like
I
that's
know.
incredible, because it is, and clarity comes with time. I mean, that's like the motto of an emotional authority. Clarity comes with time, because what you said just then that you're bringing up to your head. This is something I have to talk to my clients so much about, because and I think it's really, it's how it's society in general. That's how we're trained, is to make mental decisions,
Yeah.
mental processing. And I will tell you this, it's talking about authority here on your chart. There is no such thing as a mental authority. There is no such thing. There is nobody on the face of the planet has anything called mental authority, because it doesn't exist. We are not meant to make decisions in the mind. We're meant to make decisions in the body. And so, like, if you
Yeah.
ever read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, like the body holds all the answers. So if we can all just get out of our heads and get into our body, like this is the answer. So yeah, I love that you're already embodying that. That's amazing.
See, this is why it's so good to really tap into like who you are and do all these
Yes.
different assessments, because I tell you what, it's game changer. It really is a game changer when you know who you are, you know why you do the things that you do. And I think a lot of times people are like, oh my God, they see it as negative. And it's like, no. There's a reason. There's a reason why you have to process that. And like, that's where I get really, heightened in moments where there's like confrontation or things like that in conflict. And you have those aggressive people that want an answer like right then.
Yes.
And my body,
Yes.
like it does all these weird things because I can't do that. And it's like, I'm not trying to be rude to you. I'm not trying to not give you the answer. I just need time. I just need time to process.
Yep.
But then it also drives me nuts in business where I want to make decisions quick. And I'm like, come on, chill, just figure it out.
I know. You're right. And I do the same thing. Or for me, it's just questioning. Like I have that immediate answer in the moment. I'm like, no, that can't be right. That can't be right. Like I'm just questioning it. So, but I think it's important too, as as business owners and entrepreneurs, to keep that in mind too, when you are selling to people, because not everybody makes decisions the way. And that's for me. I'm a quick decision maker because of my authority, but I know not everybody's like that. So for me, I'm like, why can't you just make a decision? Like I know how to make decisions that fast, but not everybody knows how to do that. Some people need time, like especially those who are emotional authorities, they need time. So keeping that in mind, like when you're rushing people to make a decision, it's just going to cause resistance. Like it's not going to end well.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a good point. Like this is good to know even like other people's human design in your home, like in your
Oh,
marriage, I
yes.
bet, and your
Oh my
kids.
gosh. Oh my gosh. If I can tell you, like, if you can learn like the basics of your human design, and if you can learn your partner, your spouse, and your
Yeah,
kids, it will change everything. I
I
mean, I'm not
bet.
even being dramatic. Like, it'll change everything. If you
Yeah.
have like a team and or you have staff, like your immediate, like the people you're working with, because I think that's the other thing too. Let me stop sharing so we're not staring at this.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing too, is we were talking about productivity. I
Mm-hmm.
think when you can understand people at this level,
Mm-hmm.
and like I mentioned, there was 5 different types, and within those 5 types, there are types that really aren't meant to be like the quote productive types. They're
Yeah.
the guides, or they're the leaders, and they're not meant to get all the things done. But when you know that you can hire, like I have a friend, she's a functional practitioner like me. She does people, anybody she hires, she does her human design chart just to know their type, because she is a projector,
Yes.
which is a type that is not supposed to be a productive doer of all the things. She wants to fill in those energetic gaps to know
Yep.
I need the generator, the manifesting generator to finish all the things, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it'll change everything.
That's brilliant. It's
Mm-hmm.
brilliant because
Yeah.
yeah, we need,
Yeah.
that's why God wired us all differently, is because
Exactly.
we're not meant to do
Yes,
all the things. We're
exactly.
supposed
We
to
fit the
stay in our
puzzle. All
lane.
of us are playing. Yes. And we just fit in the puzzle piece. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. I love it. I'm sure everybody listening is just like I was, just eyes open, mouth drop, like, oh my gosh, there's a reason why I act the way I do, or the way I make decisions, or
Yes. Yes.
so good. So good,
It's
Hope.
so good.
Okay, well, where can the listeners find out, more about you? Maybe how they can go, talk with you about finding out their own human design. Where
Yeah.
are you on social? Just give us a little bit more background on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So you mentioned my podcast. So definitely you can go to my podcast. It's hopeful and wholesome, and lots of good things happening
Yes.
there. And then I'm probably most active on Instagram. I'm at the Hope Pedraza. You can find me on Facebook as well, but I think my Instagram and the podcast are probably the best places. And I'm always putting out freebies to learn more about your human design and cycle syncing and all the things. So that's where you can learn all the things.
Awesome. I think it's tremendous. So I would highly recommend anybody listening, go check that out. Learning more about your own human design, the way that you do things is a game changer. So this is awesome. I've dove into so many of the things. So I'm excited to know I'm just not making some of this stuff up. Like, this is like, that's so awesome. Like, just
right.
that I use that acronym, and
Yes.
there's a reason why I use that. So
There's a reason. Yep.
that's
Yep.
crazy.
That's
Crazy,
amazing.
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Hope. I really appreciate you coming on today and just sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And actually, wait, before we leave, I always love to ask this. I wrote it down. You actually mentioned a book, so I don't know if that's what you're reading or listening to, but you put Body Keeps the Score. I'm going to have to check
Yes,
that one out.
Yes, The Body Keeps the Score. Everybody should read that. It's a heavy read, so
Okay.
like read it in pieces.
Yeah. Little bite size. Okay. And then anything else that you would recommend? Any good podcasts, any other books that you love?
Yes. I am big into, while I do like to read actual books, I find I have more time to listen when I'm driving, around and doing all the things. So I am big into, I have a ton of books on Audible. So right now, and because I'm a manifesting generator, I'm usually listening to like 4 things at one time.
Yep, me too.
So I never like finish
them.
over start. Yes. Yeah. Same. I do the and if I'm like, oh, I've heard enough, let's go to the next one.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's a thing. So right now I'm listening to a Bob Proctor book. I love Bob Proctor. So I'm Bob Proctor. I'm listening to a Dr. Joe Dispenza book.
Ooh.
And then if you've ever heard of Heart Math, I highly recommend looking up Heart Math. It's really goes along well with what we're talking about, but they have a book as well. And it's actually a pretty quick, it's not a long read, but Heart Math, the Heart Math Institute has it. It's a really insightful read. So
okay. Yeah. Heart Math, like math, the
Heart Math, M-A-T-H.
not map.
Okay. Yes, math. M-A-T-H.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That really made me laugh because I beat myself up all the time. I'm like, I buy all these books and I buy all these audio podcasts, and I'll start them and then I'm like, okay, I'm done with that.
Yes.
I'm like,
same. No, it's a thing. I have stacks of books. And I was like, you ever going to read all these? I'm like, maybe not. I don't know.
It'll circle back around if it's supposed to. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Too funny. All right. Well, thank you so much, Hope. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jill. Thank you so much.